What's going on, YouTube? This is SG1 Sports, and you're watching our college football channel. We're going to give you the projected standings for the Big 12 Conference at the end of the 2021 college football season. We've done the SEC, the Big 10, and the ACC. If you missed those videos, make sure you go back and check them out. What we're doing here is not a prediction. Keep in mind, our predictions are still a few weeks away. I know a lot of you are excited about the predictions, but they will begin the day after Memorial Day. That's when we're going to start going team by team and doing the predictions. This is based off of the projected records that we showed you back a couple of months ago, and it's simply based off of what the national narrative is around all of these teams, and then putting that up against their schedule, and then just kind of using some percentages to figure out what the projected record should be. And again, I talk about that a lot more in the projected record videos. Just go back to search Oklahoma schedule preview, projected record, Iowa State. Go back and check those out. And we didn't do every team, so that's why I do these videos, to show you what the projection is for those teams that didn't get individual videos. And this is a very conservative approach to it. Keep that in mind. A team like Oklahoma is going to be favored in every game that they play, but because of the percentages, even though you're favored in every game, the percentages are going to say that you might lose one or two games, so you might not finish undefeated. So keep all that in mind as we go through and do these projections. We start at the bottom. Kansas finishes 2-10 overall, 1-8 in the conference, and these projections were based off of the overall record. We had to just kind of figure out the conference record based off of that overall record. So really the main thing here is the overall record, and then I kind of figured out the conference records based off of that, and then we had to, of course, make the wins and losses equal for the teams in the conference. But Kansas, I think, is clearly the bottom team in this conference. I don't think they're going to win a game. I'm going to go ahead and give you my spoiler right now. I think they're 0-9 in the Big 12. Don't really see any reason why Kansas would win a game in the Big 12. This team's going to be terrible. I'm sorry, Kansas fans, but they're just going to be terrible. New head coach again. A lot of roster turnover. They actually are towards the bottom in returning production this year. So Kansas is a team that I think is just not going to be very good. But the odds would say that when you've got 9 games, you're going to find a way to win one of them, even though you're underdogs. So 1-8 for Kansas is the projection. Texas Tech and Baylor, they're ahead of them at 3-6 in the Big 12. Baylor 5-7, missing out on a bowl game because of a tougher non-conference schedule. Texas Tech there at 6-6. They would make it to a bowl game. I put Baylor ahead of Texas Tech simply because they have home field advantage in this matchup, and that's how we break up the ties if it's a two-way tie. But yeah, it's interesting here to see these two teams again towards the bottom. Texas Tech is a team that the FBI likes. They had them in the top 25. They got Tyler Shuck coming in for Oregon. Maybe they're a surprise team this year. Maybe they beat this projection. And that's something else I've talked about is these overall records are really what you would kind of set as a benchmark for these teams. If they do better than this, I think they've had a good year. If they do worse than this, it's a bad year. So if Baylor can get to a bowl game, I think it's a good year. Texas Tech, they need to get to a bowl game. If they can get to 7-5, it's a good year. If they miss out on a bowl game, it's a bad year. And I do think that these projections do a pretty good job of just telling you what the expectations should be for these teams. Ahead of them is Kansas State. They come in at 4-5 in the Big 12, 7-5 overall. Now again, the overall record is what we projected, so 7-5 for Kansas State. You can flip that around and say that they go 5-4 in the conference and lose the non-conference game to Stanford. That is a way that you could get to 7-5, but 5-4 in the conference. Either way you want to look at it, 7-5 is the projected overall record for Kansas State as they come in just behind the teams ahead of them. But like I said, I think this is a team that could maybe get to 5-4. 7-5 is a pretty good overall record. To have a good season, though, they need to get up to about 8-4, and that is where you really would say it was a successful season for Kansas State. We had a 3-way tie at the next spot. They're really not in any order. I'll go ahead and tell you one of them. That's West Virginia. They finished 5-4 in the conference, 7-5 overall, so we would project them to lose a non-conference game. But like I said with Kansas State, you win that non-conference game, and that changes the projection a little bit. That's going to knock them down to 4-5 in the conference. So that's, depending on what happens in those non-conference games, that could obviously change the conference records here with these projections. But West Virginia is tied with two other teams. The other two teams that they're tied with are Oklahoma State and TCU. Both of these teams projected to go 7-5. just like West Virginia, and also to go 5-4 in the Big 12. Like I said, you change that non-conference game, you're 4-5 in the conference. But I do think that there is kind of that group in the middle of Oklahoma State, TCU, West Virginia, and Kansas State, I think, is in that same conversation. Those are kind of your mid-tier teams in the Big 12. The team ahead of Oklahoma State's a team that might be in that mid-tier, or they might be just above them, and that's the Texas Longhorns. Texas at 6-3. Iowa State, I think, is clearly the second best team in this conference. And it's another tricky thing here with the overall record. So their projection was 9-3. I'm projecting that they'll beat Iowa. They get that game at home, I believe. And I think they're just the better team. So that's kind of the way we went with that projection. But because you've got that almost 50-50 game in the non-conference, it kind of does change the projection a little bit. And it's a team that might could go 7-2 in the conference, but 9-3 overall. I think they're clearly the second best team. I think they're clearly going to be better than Texas this year. They get that game at home as well. That's why I put them ahead. But the projection does have, again, it's very conservative, does have both Iowa State and Texas going 6-3. But Iowa State with a better overall record going 9-3, while Texas goes 8-4 overall. So the projection does have Iowa State ahead of Texas with the overall record, but they would, in this scenario, be tied in the conference. Like I said, you could change that around. Make Iowa State maybe 7-2, give them another win, and then you could take the win away from Kansas or something. That's a way you can make these projections work. There are different ways you can move the records around, but this was just kind of the most likely way I saw it playing out if these teams did have this overall record. And with Texas, you've got Louisiana and Arkansas, two tough non-conference games. The projection would say that they're going to lose one of those two games. If they win all those games, then you could be talking about Texas going 5-4 in the Big 12. Like I said, one little game could change things around here. But the number one team is Oklahoma at 7-2, 10-2 overall. I'll go ahead and tell you right now, I don't think this team will lose two games. I think at most they lose one regular season game. They might even go undefeated. But when you've got a lot of tough games, you got games that you're going to be favored in, but you're not going to have automatic wins. Games you'll be favored by a touchdown, 10 points, something like that. The odds, again, would catch up to you that you're going to lose one or two of those games. And for Oklahoma, the projection would put them at 10-2 overall. And we do have them beating Nebraska in the non-conference. So 7-2 in the conference, 10-2 overall. Like I said, my predictions will be a little bit different. Oklahoma and Iowa State will probably be a little bit higher. Their records will be a little bit better. Kansas, I will not pick to win a game. So you'll see some differences with my predictions compared to these projections. But this is simply a rough projection. And with Oklahoma State and Iowa State, if I said this is the line, if you do better than this, you have a good season. If Oklahoma's 11-1, I mean, that's a good season, but I think they're looking to go 12-0. And Iowa State, 10-2, yeah, that's a pretty good year, but they're looking to get to maybe 11-1. But again, I think at the end of the day, if you're 11-1 and you're Oklahoma and you can win the Big 12 championship, you're going to make the college football playoff more than likely. So that is a good year. Iowa State, if you go 10-2, that is a good year. I mean, that's a New Year's Six bowl again, even though I think, again, Iowa State fans looking for more than that this year as they have big-time expectations. Both Oklahoma and Iowa State have a lot of expectations coming into this season, but that's how the projection looks for the Big 12. Do you agree with these projections? Do you disagree? What would you change? Give me your thoughts down in the comments below. Thank you for watching this video, and stay tuned for more here on the SG1 Sports College Football Channel.